Hey there folks, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could be here because in today's episode, we're making an Aussie snag. The word snag in Australia is slang for sausage. And so there are lots of different snags, if you will, in Australia. The sausage we're going to be making today is quite possibly Australia's most popular sausage. It's called the Bunnings Snag. Let me explain this sausage. Bunnings is a hardware store in Australia, and every weekend they have an event called the Bunning Sizzle. This is where they allow groups to set up shop in front of their hardware store and sell the Bunning Snag to try and raise money for their cause. It's a great fundraising opportunity and a wonderful community event. As far as the sausage itself goes, I don't believe that there's any specific standards to the Bunning Snag. Now, if I'm totally off, let me know in the comment section below, but from my research, it really all depends on who's hosting the sizzle, what part of the country you're in, things like that. I've seen the Bunning Snag 100% beef, 100% pork. I've even seen poultry versions of it, depending on where you're at in Australia. I think at the end of the day, the Bunning Snag is basically an inexpensive emulsified sausage that can be bought, in bulk or at a big box store, which makes sense because the groups that are having to buy this sausage for the Bunning Sizzle are trying to raise money for their cause. And so there's a decent chance they're not spending a lot of money on premium made sausages. And so in today's video, we're going to be making the Bunning Snag from scratch, which probably already breaks rule number one when it comes to this sausage, and it's that this sausage cannot be fancy. So there we go. This is going to be an emulsified sausage, and just to let you know that the emulsified sausage category in sausage making has the highest failure rate of all the categories. So it's a challenging sausage to make, simply because it's so technical. But don't worry, we're going to take this episode nice and easy, and I'll put a link in the description box with the recipe, and that will outline every single one of the steps so that if you choose to make this sausage at home, it'll improve your chances for success. Now, if you want to take the easy way out, go to the store, buy an inexpensive emulsified sausage, and prepare it the way we do at the end of this video. But honestly, I think that the Bunning Snag has more to do with the event rather than the sausage. And one could argue that you really can't have a Bunning Snag outside of a Bunning sausage sizzle. So anyway, just a couple thoughts on the matter. When making an emulsified sausage, you will need an accurate thermometer. We use the Thermometer from Thermoworks, and I can't stress enough, temperature is absolutely critical. Matter of fact, it is so critical, I think this is a great time to give one of these thermometers away. Thermoworks has been kind enough to offer up a couple Thermopins for Celebrate Sausage, and today we're going to be giving one away. If you're not familiar with Thermoworks, I'll put a link in the description box below, but in a nutshell, Thermoworks is a company that's known for their reliability when it comes to measuring temperature. They've got all sorts of different units, big, small, pocket size. They've got wireless thermometers that they just came out with called the RFX, and if you haven't seen it yet, that is a literal game-changing device when it comes to measuring temperature wirelessly. If temperature is as important to you as it is to me, you should definitely give them a peek. Let's give one of these away. How do you enter to win? Very easy. Click that subscribe button and that notification bell if you're not already a subscriber. Share this video on your social media platform and give this video a thumbs up. Most importantly, drop me a comment in the comment section below and let me know why you need a Thermopin by Thermoworks, or why you need a second one or a third one. Heck, I've got 4 and I'm looking for my 5th one. You can never have too many Thermopins. At least that's how I feel. One lucky comment will be selected at random on Sunday at midnight. So you got a couple days to do all those things. I hope you win. All right, let's make the Bunnings Snag. Let's look at the meat selection for our version of the Bunnings Snag. We're going to be using a little pork, a little beef, and then some pork back fat. If you want this sausage sizzle to be 100% beef, you can totally do that. Follow the recipe link in the description box below. Just use beef and beef fat. Not a problem. The meat's going to get cut up into little cubes, and so is the fat. Now, the one thing about this particular sausage is we are going to keep the fat separate, right? So we are going to chill everything, but we're going to keep them separate through the process until the very end, at which point we'll combine them. But I'll show you all that here as we move along. As far as the spices go, we're going to add salt, a little white pepper, and some Insecure number 1. The Insecure number 1 is technically optional. The reason I'm adding it is because we are going to cold smoke this sausage to give it a nice smoky flavor. But if you don't plan on cold smoking it, you don't need to add Insecure number 1. We're going to add some marjoram, some mustard powder, a little onion powder, and then some garlic powder. This final ingredient is a cure accelerator called sodium erythorbate. This is only necessary if you're going to be using cure number 1 and you want to cook it the same day. If you're not adding your curing salt or you plan on letting your sausages rest in the fridge overnight, you do not need a cure accelerator. Okay, there we go. This is our spice profile for our Aussie snag. Should go well with the mix of proteins that we have. We now need to look at the binder, and you can use whatever binder you want. Phosphates, potato starch, non-fat dry milk. We're going to be using C-bind in this recipe. This is a carrot fiber that can absorb 26 times its weight in water and 4 times its weight in oil. So I do believe that this is actually going to help us produce a juicier product. And it may make the process of making an emulsified sausage a little more forgiving. And so, if your emulsified sausage technique isn't necessarily on point, you might want to give C-bind a try and see how you go with that. All right, so I'm going to weigh that out. And the recipe link I'm going to have in the description box below has all the measurements for the spices, for the liquid, and it's going to have the entire process written out. The emulsified sausage is pretty intense. All right, we have our spices in 1 cup, and we do want to keep the spices and the binder separate, right? So we don't want to combine those two at this stage. We're going to add the spices first, and then right at the very end of the process, we will add our binder, combine the two, and it'll be great. Let's look at our meat. Our meat should be very cold at this stage, and it looks like it is partially frozen, absolutely perfect. What we're going to do here is a double grind. And once again, we just want to keep the meat and the fat separate. We're going to start with a 10 millimeter plate, basically a coarse grind, and then we're going to finish with a 6 millimeter plate. If you want to go down even smaller to, let's say, a third grind at 3 millimeters or 4.5 millimeters, you could totally do that. What we're doing here is having our grinder do most of the heavy lifting for us. We want to chop our meat and fat up into small particles, and so you're either going to be doing that with your food processor or your grinder, and your grinder is more equipped to do that, and it's going to be a whole lot less stressful for your food processor. So this is the second grind with the fat, and then the second grind with our beef and pork. And like I said, if you want to do a third grind, that's actually even better, but a double grind is sufficient. Okay, let's get the food processor going. We're going to be using a commercial food processor, and my suggestion here is that if you're going to make this sausage, you want to make sure that you have a food processor with a nice strong motor, minimum 1200 watts, 1400 would be better. And here in a minute, I'll show you the exact moment that you can break your food processor if it's not strong enough. Okay, let's add our beef and pork and our spices. So that's going to go in first. Notice we have not yet added our binder. That's in this cup. We're just going to set that to the side. This first step is all about extracting protein, and we need to get as much protein out of this meat as possible. So we're going to continue to chop it up into even smaller particles, basically turn it into like a paste. We did add 1/3 of our crushed ice. We're going to add the ice in increments to not only soften the batter, but also keep the meat mixture cold. During this step, you want to keep the temperature of the meat below 45 Fahrenheit or 7 Celsius. And watch what I'm doing as I'm pulsing the meat. Notice that ball that's forming right there around the blade. See it right there? This is the first thing that's going to happen when you're chopping your meat. And if your food processor's motor isn't strong enough, it's going to burn up during this step right here. The motor's going to sound like it's struggling, and it's probably because it is. This is very taxing on the motor during this step. Let's continue chopping. And notice the blade. See how it's struggling a little bit during this first part? Thankfully, our food processor has a strong enough motor, but like I said, if yours don't, then this is where you kiss your food processor goodbye. All right, so after a little bit of chopping, we are going to scrape it down, and notice how it's starting to get incredibly sticky. That's a combination of the salt pulling the proteins, myosin and actin out of the meat. Remember, under 45, it looks like we are at 33, good to go. We are going to add another 1/3 of our ice, so we now have 2/3 of our ice into this mix. And the Thermopen, you'll see in this episode, is a very handy tool to have when you're making an emulsified sausage. And don't forget, we're giving one away in this episode. I hope you're the lucky winner. Okay, so notice we have that ball slinging around. It's starting to loosen up a little bit more. There we go. Beautiful. And I think the total chop time for this first stage, the protein extraction stage, was 3 to 5 minutes. We would check on it every 60 seconds or so. So we'd chop for 60 seconds, check on it, check the temperature, and we don't want to get, remember, too far above 45 Fahrenheit, and it looks like we are right at 45, which is great because the meat is chopped up fine enough to now move on to the next stage, the final stage, which is the emulsification stage. At this point, we're going to add the last 1/3 of our ice, as well as our fat. And the fat doesn't need to be frozen. This could be refrigerator temperature if you want. We are going to finish up with our binder. And there we go. All right, so all of our ingredients are in the food processor. And during this final chopping stage, we want to chop so that there's no discernible difference between meat and fat. So we're going to chop up everything into a very, very fine paste. The target temperature during this final stage is 55 Fahrenheit or 13 Celsius. So you don't want to get above 55 Fahrenheit. If you do, then you start to run the risk of smearing out the fat. And it looks like we are at 51 degrees. Let's check it over here. 51.8. Okay, not a problem there. Now, I could let this go for another 30 seconds, but I'm totally fine. The meat farce looks very well chopped up. I don't see any fat particles or anything like that. And so I am good with the way this looks, and it's time to get it into a casing. If you're going to be making a sausage like this, a dedicated sausage stuffer makes the job a whole lot easier. We're using the 1/2-inch horn on the Sausage Maker's 5-pound sausage stuffer. Very economical stuffer. We are going to try to minimize any air pockets by slamming the meat down. You could also punch it down if you want. But this is beautiful texture right there. Very, very sticky farce. I will say that if you want to stuff your sausage using a KitchenAid with the sausage stuffer attachment, you might want to reconsider making this sausage. The KitchenAid sausage stuffer is very difficult to use, and when your meat is like a paste, as in the case for this sausage, you're going to end up with a disaster. Trust me on that. All right, let's get this sausage stuffed. Beautiful work with the 5-pound sausage stuffer. Truth is, it's a little small if you like to make large batches. But if you don't make large batches, anything under 15 pounds, then it's a great sausage stuffer, I gotta be honest. All right, let's go ahead and link this up. We're gonna do 3 twists forward. We've got a palm-length sausage, nice and plump. I found a little mark on the baking sheet that I'm using, and that's what I'm using to gauge the size of each one of these sausages. The size of your link is completely up to you. We're doing 7 inches, but 6 inches is pretty standard, not a big deal. Totally your choice. And if you do find any air pockets, just give them a little prick. The emulsified sausage is unique in the sense that the fat, the water, and the protein should all be bound together, and so it doesn't fat out like a normal sausage if it's made properly. If it's not made properly, then you will fat out your sausage and you'll end up with a dry and crumbly sausage, which isn't very pleasant. Okay, so at this stage, our sausage is finished, and what we want to do is we want to go ahead and stick it in the smoker. Now, you can let this sit in the refrigerator overnight, let the cure do its job, and then you could smoke it the next day. Or you don't have to smoke it. If you're not going to be adding cure and you just want to go ahead and poach these or cook them sous vide or whatever, you could totally do that as well. We're using the Smoke-It smoker, a smoker you're going to see a lot of in this year's show. Absolutely amazing smoker for smoking sausages. And notice I have a pan of water in there with a paper towel draped over the sides. That's simply to keep the humidity high inside the smoker while we are cold smoking. Now remember, cold smoking is very different than smoking at low temperatures. Cold smoking means that no heat is applied. So we're going to be smoking this at room temperature, ideally less than 85, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so keep your fire off. Let's let that cold smoke happen. We're using the Bella's cold smoke generator, a little unit that I use constantly during our smokes. It's a great way to control how much smoke goes into your food, especially when you're making sausage. And this small diameter sausage isn't going to need but probably an hour and a half worth of smoke. If you prefer a smokier snag, you might want to smoke these for about 3 hours. I wouldn't go a whole lot longer than 3 hours though. You can very quickly overwhelm a sausage with too much smoke flavor, and if you apply too much smoke at one time, it will give it a bit of a bitter flavor as well. You totally don't want to do that. And so, nice easy smoke, hour and a half. This is what it looks like now that we're about to be finished. So notice that my smoker isn't billowing out smoke all over the place. Very nice. Absolutely loving the way this looks. And it's now time to cook our sausage. Now, the best way to cook this sausage, in my opinion, is sous vide, which means we're going to put it into a vacuum bag, place it into a little water with an immersion circulator. You can poach these sausages if you want. That's another fairly popular way of doing it. However you choose to cook your sausage, you want the humidity to be relatively high. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bit of a rubbery texture. I am going to cook these at 145 F or 62.7 Celsius, and we're going to cook these for 1 hour for every inch that the sausage is wide. These are 22, 24 millimeter casings. I tend to always refer to the higher number, so let's look at 24 millimeters. 1 inch is 25 millimeters, so we're just going to cook these for 1 hour. In the recipe link, I'll put some different cooking styles in the event that you don't have an immersion circulator. No worries. So 60 minutes have passed, and we have an ice bath ready. We're just going to cool these down pretty quick, and our Bunnings Snag is officially finished. At this point, you can refrigerate it, you can freeze it, or you can cook it up, which is what we're going to do. What I like about emulsified sausages is that when you pre-cook your sausage, much like we've done here, you in essence set your sausage. Once your sausage is set, you can cook it however way you want, and you don't have to worry about ruining the sausage or the texture or anything like that because we've already set it during this first step right here.
Let's take a look at our Aussie Snag. These are 100% cooked, ready to go. They smell amazing, just like that. You could definitely pick up a little bit of that smoke, which is what we were going for. I didn't want it to be too overwhelming. I believe we used hickory wood to smoke these snags. And let's take a look at the texture of the sausage before we throw it on our grill, so that you can see what a proper emulsified sausage texture should look like. Nice, smooth slice. Wonderful looking sausage. Great bounce to it as well. So notice you have that color difference between the smoky casing and then the sausage itself. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, let's cook these sausages up, and you can poach them, you can fry them up on a skillet, you can bake them up in your oven. To stay true to the Bunnings sizzle, we're going to cook these up on our pit, which is also going to add a whole nother layer of flavor. I've already got it rolling. Temperature management isn't entirely critical when you have a set sausage. I do want to turn down the top vent to about a 1. We got a little bit of smoke going in there as well. And we want the temperature anywhere between 225 and 300. But like I said, it's not entirely important because your sausage is already set. And if everything was made properly by this point, outside of burning your sausage, there's very little that you can do to ruin this emulsified sausage. Let's finish cooking them, and then we'll give it a taste. Beautiful looking sausage. A lot of work to make an emulsified sausage. And truth is, it's not my favorite sausage to make. But be that as it may, here we are, and it's now time to make our Bunnings sizzle. We've got our white bread. And if safety is your #1 priority, you gotta put the onions down first. Let's get that snag right on top. And at this point, we have options. What kind of sauce do you want to add? How about a little mustard? That looks pretty good. And maybe just to rile up the American audience, let's put some tomato sauce on there. But you can also put a little barbecue or whatever you want. And there we go.
Our Aussie Snag is ready, and it came out incredible. Look at this sausage. Springy bounce, which should deliver a very nice mouthfeel. Wow. Definitely picking up the smoke. The grill aromas coming from the sausage. Very good. Let's give it a little snap so you can see the inside. Oh, very nice. Check that out. Perfect emulsified texture. Very juicy as well. Oh, this looks great. Absolutely incredible. A rite of passage for every Australian. Let's just give it a bite. It's strange, I feel like I'm a part of that Sunday experience over at the Bunnings hardware store. Absolutely amazing sausage. I mean, this is a very delicately seasoned sausage. It's not overwhelming. The spices are very balanced, super juicy. You're getting that smoke, that grill flavor. And then, of course, you've got the caramelized onions, the tomato sauce, the mustard. You could also throw a little barbecue sauce on this if you want. Let me just go in one more time. This is a rock solid sausage. Flavors really meld together beautifully with the smoke and the grill, you know, after it's all said and done. As far as the emulsified sausage itself, it ticks all the boxes. It's juicy, casing is snappy, and the texture is absolutely perfect. It's nice and springy. It's not pillowy. It's not airy. It's not mushy. We didn't fat it out. And so the emulsified sausage was certainly made the right way. And then the spices just take it to a completely different level. It's absolutely amazing. I'll put a recipe link in the description box below for this Australian sausage. And I get it. Emulsified sausages can be a little challenging to make. They are super technical. You kind of have to nail every step in order for the sausage to turn out amazing. And so if you want to make this Aussie Snag, but you don't want to make it an emulsified sausage, I'll put a second recipe for those of you who just want to make this as a regular sausage, and that way you can experience the absolutely amazing flavors that this Australian sausage has to deliver. Thanks a lot for watching, folks. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video or got something out of it in any way, give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel and you enjoy sausages, whether you like making them, eating them, watching other people make them and eat them, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because we are uploading a brand new sausage baking recipe every day through the month of October. Matter of fact, in tomorrow's episode, we're going to see what happens when a South African immigrates over to Italy and decides to make his absolutely favorite meat snack. It should be pretty interesting. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. So good. So good.